Beck and welcome to the end of year book tag. I am running out of ideas, so naturally I'm doing a book tag. This is supposed to be done, I think, with a little bit of time left for the end of the year so you can squish in the goals and the books that you really want to read and succeed in. So that's what I'm going to do, and I already had a quick peek at the questions and I know that the first one is going to shame me, so let's just get into them. That first question is, are there any books that you've started this year that you need to finish? And if you've been on my channel, then you know that this is the book I'm going to hold up, The Hero of Ages, Mistborn, Book 3. I read almost 200 pages of this, and just because I wasn't in the right mood, I put it down, even though I really love this series. I don't know what it is, maybe it was the length, but I've been in and out of a reading slump this year, and I found it really hard to read. But I do really want to read this, obviously, if I've enjoyed it before, but it is a reread, so I think that's why my brain's like, it's not a priority because I've read it before technically. So this is one that I want to finish by the end of the year. I don't know realistically if I'm going to, but I still want to, and I still want to try and motivate myself to do that. But as for this question, I think this is the only one I can think of, but there are a lot of series that I've started this year and I know I'm not going to finish them, and I'm completely fine with that. Question number 2 is, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? And usually people in the US do this book tag at the end of the year, but because I'm in Australia, it is spring. I've put a few spring recommendations together actually. I do read mostly for my mood, so sometimes that corresponds with the season, but I've recently hauled a book in a recent reading vlog and I will show you what it is. It's Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake, and this is about a wedding photographer. She goes to, naturally, a wedding, and I think it rekindles something that she had with this girl in the past. But that is all I know about it, and I don't like knowing too much about rom-coms before going into them, so I'm very satisfied with just that bit of a hook. I think I'm going to enjoy this. I really hope I like it. It seems to be in the kind of colour scheme and similar vein to Casey McQuiston's books, and I love their stuff, so I'm really hoping that I like this one as well. If I don't get to it this year though, that's completely fine. I very usually read contemporary books in February, so if I don't get it read by the end of this year, I have it earmarked for February, so I'm not really stressed whether I read this by the end of the year or not. All of the books on my TBR card, obviously I haven't read yet, and eventually this will change when I properly move into my house. I'm going to change all this stuff over to, books I've read that month, books I've recently hauled, and my TBR is going on a separate bookshelf, so I'll still be able to keep it separate. So that is my plan for the future. As far as this TBR goes though, I think it's pretty manageable, and that means I'm not really stressed about finishing it all by the end of 2022. Question 3 is there a new release that you are still waiting for? Yes, there is. I actually have the first book on my TBR cart, and I am very eagerly awaiting the sequel to Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I'm really looking forward to Bloodmarked, and it comes out in November, so I don't have a lot to wait anymore. And then I'm also eagerly awaiting the next volume of Saga, which does come out in October, and I've pre-ordered it. So I have a few new releases coming out that I'm quite anticipating, and I'm really looking forward to, because not all of them are going to be super duper long, because obviously Saga is a graphic novel sci-fi fantasy series, and then the other one that I'm looking forward to is Lore Olympus, and that's also a graphic novel. So this one is the long one, and then the other two are the short ones, so that helps me a little bit when it comes to mentally climbing up my TBR pile. The next question is, what are 3 books that you want to read by the end of the year? And I wanted to read the books that I'm reacting to for the BookTuber's Favourite Book reaction series that I did, and I'm actually currently reading Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, so I've made a start on that. But something else that I really want to read that should be on here somewhere is Senlin Ascends, and this was in Emily Fox's favourites, and I've read the first 6 pages and put it down, and I'm really scared that I'm not going to like it just based on how it starts, but I need to give it 50 or so pages to really understand it, so I need to at least read 50 pages, if not start and finish this cover to cover by the end of the year, because I want to get that video done. So this book, Shadow of the Gods, and also ideally Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, because I also have this on my reacting to Daniel Green's favourites, and I put it on my October TBR as well. So if I could get this done too, that would be awesome. The second last question is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favourite book of the year? I don't think so, to be honest. I have my expectations fairly low for the rest of my TBR, and that's actually making me not as motivated to read them because there's nothing I'm super excited about except new releases, which I've already pre-ordered. So I'm not super duper invested in my TBR, which is not that exciting. That's kind of sad, actually. If I had to go out on a limb and pick one, I'd probably pick Justice of Kings because I've seen a lot of hype for this, especially at the beginning of this year, and I've put this on my tentative November TBR, depending on how the rest of my TBR goes for October. So I'm hoping to get to this by the end of the year, and I think it could surprise me. Like, there is potential there, especially with the narrative style, because it's told from a character who's a bit older, but she's reflecting on what she's done when she was apprenticing for this mage or this wizard, I think. And so you get both of her perspectives from then and then with more knowledge. So I think when I consider the potential of her point of view, I think that'll be quite a riveting story to read. So I think this has potential, and it's also not 800 pages, so I think I could get to this realistically by the end of the year. And then the last question on this tag is, have you started making reading plans for next year? Tentatively, yes. I know that I want to reread Robin Hobb's books because I started a reread of her stuff and then just dropped the ball because, again, I was just too busy and I got too distracted. So I would like to start at the beginning again and reread Robin Hobb because I love her stuff, and I've wanted to reread Farseer, Live Ship, Rain Wilds, Tawny Man, Fitz and Fool. I've wanted to read all of her Elderling stuff, and I haven't for such a long time, so I can't wait to rekindle all my passion about that series. And then also I have some tentative goals for next year, so I have been thinking about my reading plans. I'm not sorry, because I like planning. I'm a planner and a mood reader. If I plan a rough TBR, at least that gives me a list, and then I can go, oh yeah, I'll read everything on that list, or oh, I'll read one thing on that list and substitute all of these other things. So at least that way it gives me some kind of structure, even if I don't get to everything. So I'm also looking at my TBRs for the entirety of this year, and I'm tracking them and going, what books have I read from them and what books did I not read from them? So I think that will be an interesting revisit to do either in December or January, and basically shame myself and say, hey, you haven't read all this stuff that you said you would. So on that note, this is the end of year book tag. Let me know if you have any books on your TBR that you're wanting to finish by the end of the year. I would be overjoyed to know, but if you would like to subscribe, that would be amazing. It supports my channel, but otherwise I'll talk to you in the comments and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.